In this video, we're going to discuss some common mistakes that students make while measuring. A lot of times students can measure with decent accuracy, but it's their precision or the number of decimal places that they do incorrectly. So in this video, we're going to discuss mostly on that idea of, are you making your measurement to the correct number of decimal places? So a common mistake that I see here, if we're dealing with this as a graduated cylinders, and if you look at this, each of the tick marks are measuring one. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way up to 20, okay, by ones. And if we were to make a measurement of this, okay, and if the meniscus was right here, I'm going to draw it with a black marker. And what I'm trying to do is I'm just trying to barely touch that 10 tick mark there. And I want to remind you that when we read a meniscus, we read it from the very bottom of the meniscus. This curved line is what we call the meniscus. So a lot of times, if a student has a graduated cylinder that looks like this, and they fill it up to this amount in their data table, they might record this as 10 milliliters, because this is going to be in units of milliliters. And this is actually an incorrect measurement. Okay, it's not recording to the level that you need to go to. So to prove my point here, I'm going to use a red marker. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of go, if this is 5, and this is 6, and this is 7, I'm going to try to go kind of like about halfway in between here with my meniscus. And I asked my students, well, how would you measure this? Okay, so if this is 5, 6, 7, if it's between 6 and 7, people will say, oh, you measure that as 6.5 milliliters. I say, correct. That is exactly how you need to measure that. Okay, but the thing that I need to remind them is, well, if we can measure it to the tenths place, okay, when we're in between the tick marks, then we got to record it to the tenths place when we're exactly on the tick mark. So the correct answer is not 10, it's going to be 10.0 milliliters, okay? So it's measured to the tenths place, because when you make a measurement, okay, the amount of decimal places that you take it out will tell you kind of like what type of measuring device that you have. So when you report your measurements, you are telling the reader, hey, this is a type of measuring device I have, okay? And this is different than this. And when it comes to sig figs, we know that there's a difference between this number and this number. This one is going to have 3 sig figs, okay? So just a reminder, in math class, there's no difference between these two numbers. They have the same value, okay? But in science class, these things mean different things based on the number of zeros that they have. That's your whole sig fig lesson. If you forget about sig figs, I have a video on significant figures as well. Okay, so let's kind of come back over here. Let's look at a different graduated cylinder. This graduated cylinder has tick marks that are measured by 0.1s. So here's 1. This is 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, 1.5, 0.6, 0.7, 0.8, 0.9 until we get to 2. Okay, so this graduated cylinder is a little different than this one, but the idea is the same. If we come here and I put my tick mark, or I'm sorry, I put my meniscus on the very, very bottom, okay, we don't measure that as 1 milliliter if this thing's measured in milliliters. That would be an incorrect answer, okay? So I'm going to do the same thing that I did before, okay? What if it was in between tick marks? Like, let's say it was kind of right in here, okay? Now remember, this is 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, 0.5. It's between 0.5 and 0.6, okay? If it's between 0.5 and 0.6, okay, so if 0.5 and 0.6, like kind of like what numbers in between 0.5 and 0.6? And I hope you come up with 0.55 would be between 0.5 and 0.6. So if we can measure this to 2 decimal places, then we got to record this not as just 1.0, but to 2 decimal places, so it's 1.00 milliliters. So when I do this lesson, sometimes students think, oh, you're just going to add a 0, okay? Well, not all the time, okay? You just really got to ask yourself, if it was in between the tick marks, how many decimal places would I use? And whatever that answer is, you got to do that all the time for that particular measuring device. So in this particular measuring device, if it's in between tick marks, I go 2 decimal places. So when it lands exactly on a tick mark, I'm still recording it to 2 decimal places. Likewise over here, when it's in between the tick marks, I measured it to the 10th place. So it lands exactly on a tick mark, I'm still recording it to the 10th place. And that's how you increase like your precision. This is the right way to measure, okay? A lot of students, once again, they're semi-accurate, okay? So they get, close to the right answer. It's just they need to record it to the right number of decimal places, and that's kind of like the major part of this lesson today. So I hope that helps, okay? And like I said, if you have trouble with significant figures in general, there's another video on that.